Hi, how are you? This is Michael Fiore, and I want to welcome you to the Text Your Wife Into Bed program. Before we get started, I just want to really take a moment to let you know what you're going to get in the Text Your Wife Into Bed program and what's going to happen for you in your marriage or your relationship when you do. The Text Your Wife Into Bed program is broken down to a few different components, starting off with videos, much like what you're watching right now, and also in text, downloadable PDFs you can use as you go. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Text Your Wife Into Bed video training. That's made up of 7 different videos, the first of which is a primer module, which I call the How Women Think About Sex module. That's where we're going to get into the psychology of how women react to sex, what turns them on and what doesn't turn them on compared to guys. So we can use that during the course of our texting. The second module is the Switching Context / Curiosity Pivot module. That's going to be where I teach you how to send that first couple of texts over to your wife or to your girlfriend so that she'll actually be more or less forced to respond and get back to you. Third, we're going to go into the Establishing Lust, Her Sexual Power module. That's all about establishing that your wife is a very sexy woman who deserves your attention and basically getting her more into the whole concept of what you're going to be doing. Module 4 is what I call multi-sensual storytelling, which is kind of a big word for creating a fantasy for her, basically installing a fantasy in your wife's mind or awakening some fantasy she may already have. And then module 5 is the Building Anticipation and Sealing the Deal module. That's really more or less about basically taking it from a texting thing and pushing your wife over to the point where she actually wants to act on the kinds of fantasies and things you've been talking about during the day. Module 6 is a very basic FAQ nuts and bolts module. That's where I answer some basic questions you might have, what kind of cell phone to get, how often do you text, things like that. And that's the video component of the course. You're also going to get a bunch of supplementary PDFs that go with the course. The first and probably the most important of these is the 4-Day Icebreaker PDF. In fact, I'd recommend you download that PDF right away and give it a read. The 4-Day Icebreaker is basically a bridge between wherever you are right now as far as how you communicate with your wife, to getting to the point that you can really use some of the more intense and dirtier material in this course without feeling weird about it or having any trouble with it. So definitely go through the 4-Day Icebreaker before you try to use the more advanced stuff. You're also going to get downloads of slides from each presentation, much like what you see now, so you can use those as study guides or to go over things. You get a summary cheat sheet, which is included in the Text Your Wife Into Bed manual. The Text Your Wife Into Bed checklist, also in the manual, done for you text examples and building blocks, and example text conversations. The vast majority of the stuff I've put into one document for you just to make it easier for you to download, print out, take a look at, things like that. Most guys who go through this course really tend to keep the done for you text examples close at hand. I know a lot of guys who say they actually print that up, keep it in the car, and oftentimes end up kind of digging through it as they're texting their wife back and forth, trying to find dirty, interesting, fun stuff to say. So you might want to do the same thing. You're also going to get audio downloads of the video so you can listen on your MP3 player. That's basically, I put those in because a lot of guys say they like to listen to this stuff while they're at the gym or while they're in the car or just on a set of headphones so that they don't feel like their wife can walk in on them while they're going through this entire stuff. You can also get, I believe I'm going to put some iPod-friendly versions of the videos up on the site as well, so you'll be able to have those. Just want to make it as easy as possible for you guys to consume this information and really get something out of it. Also, just as a state of fact, I do add more stuff to this course on a regular basis, some of which I'm not going to talk about in this video. So it's completely possible, depending on the last time I updated this video, that you might find some other stuff just hanging out there. More examples, a new version of the manual, more checklists, things like that. I'm always kind of taking feedback from guys who go through the course and trying to find ways to make it better, easier to use, more effective, etc. Just to kind of get through things here, what order should you use this stuff in? A lot of guys, when they first get the course, you get the videos, you get the manual, you get all this other stuff. What should you do? So here's my personal recommendation. First, I recommend you watch all the videos in order before you do anything else. The videos are on average about 10 minutes long. I believe module 4 is about 20 minutes long because that's where we get into the real fantasy storytelling stuff. It's less than, I think it's about an hour and 10 minutes total, and the entire thing really will not take you very long to get through it all. So I recommend you go through the whole thing. Second, I recommend pretty much everybody use the 4-day icebreaker, which is the printed supplementary material that I gave you with the course. The icebreaker really in a lot of detail tells you exactly what to send to your wife or to your girlfriend as you're getting started. So day 1, here's the text you send. Here's how she'll probably react. Here's what you do as a follow-up. Day 2, here's what you do next. And really, I designed that 4-day icebreaker as a way to break the ice between you and your wife and introduce the concept of being able to text in this way. Some guys can really just start off with the really dirty stuff right away, the really sexual stuff right away, and get great results. But a lot of guys I find you really need that bridge to be able to go from not really talking to your wife this way at all to being able to do it in the rather dirty way that I recommend, that I teach you in this course. Third, I recommend you use the full material in the manual and the Text Your Wife into Bed implementation manual. That's where you get all of the done for you text, the checklist, etc., things like that. I would tend to tell you to leave the manual aside until after you've gone through the icebreaker. It might just confuse things a little bit, but I do want you to watch the videos first because it'll give you the vocabulary and the background you need to be able to really use that stuff. And it tells you, kind of what our ultimate goal is. Okay? Before we kind of go any further, I guess I should just kind of cover, I probably told you about this before, but why should you text your wife in the first place? The reason that I got into doing this and created this Text Your Wife into Bed program was because of all the success I had with it, with my girlfriend and with women I've dated in the past. And, I kind of discovered that while I'm not someone who is necessarily super duper romantic in person, you give me a cell phone and some time to think about what I'm going to say, and I can do kind of amazing things. And the great thing I realized was that when you text somebody, it's such a private thing. A cell phone is such a private thing. Really, generally speaking, other people aren't seeing what you're sending. They can kind of have this private little world, and it becomes a direct line to your woman's deepest sexual mind. That sounds like kind of a hypey statement, but once you start to use this stuff properly, you're going to be amazed at what you kind of get there. A woman generally takes her cell phone with her everywhere. I bet you can count on one hand the number of times you've seen your wife leave her cell phone at home. It's a very rare kind of thing. And the best thing about texting is it becomes this private little game, especially these days when people are so busy. It's so hard to find free time to really spend with your wife, time where you can really be face-to-face, just the two of you communicating in a genuine way. But with your cell phone, it's really, you can have this game, this special communication outside of the view of everybody else. And really, texting is a total thrill for most women. Getting sexy texts, getting emotional texts, getting texts that turn her on. Women really love this in general. It creates a context of sexuality in her day. And it's not in person, so it's less pressure on you. That's a big thing for a lot of guys. It's kind of like, when I was dating, trying to walk up to a girl at a bar and say hello. Oh my God, the most difficult thing in the world. But online dating and doing things like that was a lot easier because you have more time to think about what you're going to say and you can project your best self. And you can do the same thing with your texting. So here's what's going to happen after you go through this course, and I know this because I've had people go through it in the past, and this is kind of the results they tend to get. First, you're going to have a much higher level of heat with your wife or girlfriend from the word go. This tends to happen actually very, very quickly. There are certainly cases where this doesn't actually work for some people, and that's because there's probably deeper things going on in the relationship than a lack of sexuality or a lack of communication this way. But generally speaking, you're going to have a much higher level of heat. She's going to start looking at you in a more sexual way. And kind of appreciating you in a more sexual way as you appreciate her. Second, there's going to be a lot more sexual playfulness in your relationship, just a lot more fun. When you do have sex, if you're already having sex on a regular basis now, you're going to have more fun with it. She's going to want to talk more. She's going to want to do more interesting things because you're bringing this idea of sexuality and better sexuality into her life on a much higher level. Third, your wife will probably become a lot less bitchy and a lot happier in your marriage. And fourth, you're going to be able to become more of a guy in your everyday life. This is a really important bit. A lot of guys feel like they have to kind of put on a mask for their wife, but a side effect of how you do this stuff is that you really end up being able to be more of a guy, kind of own your masculinity, own your personal sexuality, own your personal lust in a way you might not have been able to before. So one big warning, this is about sex, but romance is going to get wrapped up in it too, especially when you go through the icebreaker. The icebreaker tends to use some romantic language as a way to push towards more sexual language. You can't really go from, never talking to your wife at all of a sudden calling her a sexy bitch and doing all those other kind of things in one text. It doesn't tend to work. You got to kind of warm up to it. So just be careful there. Good sex and sexy texting, though, is going to do wonders for your marriage or your relationship. It really can do wonderful things. It creates fun again. It creates this level of fun that you probably had when you were first got together, no matter how long ago that was, whether it was a year or 20 years. I've had people who've been married for 33 years use this stuff and tell me some great results. And third, it's really hard for a woman to stay mad at you when she sees you as a sex god. Kind of a funny phrase. But just a fact of life. If a woman is satisfied, if a woman sees her man, and it doesn't matter if you're built like an Adonis or if you're built like Archie Bunker or whatever else, if you psychologically engage your woman sexually, she will see you as a sex god, as someone who is in many ways in charge of her pleasure and as someone who gives her pleasure, and will generally be a lot nicer to you, will be a lot happier in the relationship. So before we close off this introductory video, I just want to read you one quick thing, because sometimes I get guys who get the course, they start going through it, and they write me an email, because you're going to get my email address, and they say, Michael, this sounds really great. You obviously know what you're talking about. This stuff feels true to me, but man, I don't know if I can do this with my wife. I don't know if I can ever get to the point that I can really send my wife this type of stuff. And so I want to share with you a testimonial I got when I first created this program. When I first shared this program with some people I knew, I actually sent it out to a mailing list I have that had nothing to do with sexuality stuff, actually. And I got a bunch of people, a tremendous number of people, who wanted to be in the beta. And I got one response back from this woman, Elizabeth in Denver, and she said, I have never been exposed to anything like this. I was a bit stunned just learning about the material to actually feel in my body how well it could work for me and my husband. Just telling him about it connected us sexually. As a 50-year-old woman, I am not even a fan of texting, yet I do love the dirty channel use of this technology. I know you will help many people improve their sex lives. How great is that? A couple of things here. She's 50, she doesn't even text, but this turned her on, just reading the material. And some of it gets really dirty. Some of it gets, I do use swearing at certain places in this course, though you don't necessarily have to, by the way. Swearing is totally optional as you're doing this. But just, if a 50-year-old woman who doesn't even like texting thinks this stuff is really good, don't you think your wife will too? I mean, I've seen this, I put this course in front of a number of women, dozens of them at this point, and I've almost always got the same response, which is, Michael, you've really figured this stuff out. I really want my husband to do this. So my entreaty to you, my request from you is, follow the material, let the material do the work for you, try it out and get the results. The worst that's going to happen is really nothing really changes. Your wife might say, oh God, no, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. And that might be an indicator of something else going on in your marriage. But generally speaking, she's going to respond really well. Almost all of them do. Women want you to do this kind of stuff. They want you to bring this sexuality and this passion into the marriage. And the idea is, if you give them this, they're going to give you what you want too, which is better sex, more fun, more experimentation, and just being able to have a better sex life. And a happier marriage, generally speaking. Okay, so the next video is the How Women Think About Sex video. I recommend you just go into it right away. You probably want to download or maybe print out the icebreaker as well, just to have it nearby. And good luck. I'm really looking forward to hearing your success story. At the end of the course, in the last video, I'll give you my private email address, so you can then write me and ask me questions, or you can just send me a testimonial, send me your own story, send me a case study about what happened with you. Thank you so much. I'm Michael Fury, and congratulations.